What's up, everybody? Today we're going to be replacing the scroll wheel encoder in my Razer Deathadder V3 Pro. I've had this mouse about 9 months and I really like it. I've never liked the way the scroll wheel felt, but lately it's been kind of glitching out on me, and I know this is a common issue. In my case, when I go to scroll down, it will a lot of times scroll up first or vice versa. It's really annoying. It's just not going to cut it. Decided to go with a TTC Gold encoder. You don't necessarily have to use that one. As long as you get one that's 15 millimeter in physical size, it'll work. We'll see how it feels. I've never used one before. Things you're going to need: you are going to need whatever encoder you choose to install. Like I said, I'm using TTC Gold. Got a 4-pack from China for like $4. They should be cheap, under $1 each. Maybe buy a couple extra ones in case something goes wrong or you get a defective one. You'll also need a Torx T6 screwdriver, a tiny Phillips #0 screwdriver, plastic spudger be helpful, not totally necessary, side cutters, needle nose pliers. I'll explain what those are for later. And you will need to do some soldering, so you got to have a solder iron, and you need some way to be able to remove a little bit of solder. If you have no solder experience, maybe this isn't for you. If you've got basic soldering skills or have ever desoldered something, like it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, if you can't solder, you don't have a solder iron, maybe you got a friend that can help you out with that part. But let's get started. All right, the first thing we got to do is we just need to remove this one bottom half circle shaped pad. There's 3 screws here, the 3 Torx screws, and they're all underneath here. Depending on how easily you get this off or what kind of condition it's going to be in when you're done, it can be reused, but probably not going to be exactly the same as it was before you took it off. Mine actually came off in 2 layers, and I mean, I reused it, but it's not perfect. So if that's going to bother you, you may want to have some replacement feet or skates on hand when you do this, so when you're done you can, I guess, change them all or just replace that one or whatever you think. And you'll see there's the first screw, and the only 3 screws we need to get at from the outside are all under this one piece, so at least you only have to peel the 1 foot off, so that's pretty good. There's 1 clip on each side of the mouse. It's not that hard to get the clip undone. Once you have the screws out, it's very easy to kind of work the gap from the back. And there's 1 right there, and on the same point on the other side. And then you're just going to slide the bottom of the mouse back, release it from the top shell. There's going to be a short ribbon cable up front here that is for the LED. So that just pulls straight out. Just grip the cable itself and be careful and pull it out. Disconnect the battery cable here. It's pretty straightforward. And the side buttons are also connected via a ribbon cable. And we'll take the 4 screws out that hold the PCB down. Once that's done, we can lift the PCB out of the bottom shell, and we'll take the scroll wheel right off and pull out the ribbon cable for the side buttons and kind of set that aside. The left click, these are actually hot swap optical switches, so you can just pull the left click out just to get it out of the way. There's a little tab on the bottom, you just loosen it and the switch will pull right out. And then what I'm going to do is the scroll wheel encoder connects to the PCB via 3 pins and then 2 legs on the outside. I'm just going to cut some of the excess off the bottom, and then I'll flip it around and use the cutters to break the outside legs. That way you can, when you desolder this and try to pull it out, it's less things you got to heat up kind of all at once. So you're basically going to heat up the solder on the 3 legs and pull the main part of the encoder out, and then you can get the 2 outside legs out separately. So I'm just going to add some solder here. The factory solder is always going to be the no lead solder, which is a little bit tricky to work with. So we're going to put some leaded solder on here just so we can work with it a little bit easier. Once that's done, we'll desolder the 3 center pins and pull the encoder out, like I said, and the 2 outside legs, and then we'll get our solder sucker tool here, and we'll clean the solder out of the holes and get ready to put the new encoder in. When I was seating my encoder, I had some trouble getting the outside legs to go into the PCB, so they're kind of curved. I just took a pair of needle nose pliers and flattened the legs out a little bit just to get them in. And then once you've got all the pins through the holes, just want to make sure it's all the way down and flush against the PCB before you start soldering it back. Yeah, soldering it back in is very straightforward. You got 1, 2, 3 pins and 2 legs. This is standard stuff. Just make sure that the encoder is properly seated in the PCB and is all the way down, and it'll work. Once that's done, it's time to start putting everything back together. So we'll take the left click switch and we'll just push that back into place. It just clips in and you're done. Set the PCB back in the bottom shell. You gotta kind of tip the or tilt the front end forward and check to make sure the USB-C port is lined up with the hole. We'll reconnect the ribbon cable for the side buttons. Just grab the cable with the tweezers and push until it's all the way in. Next, we'll get the scroll wheel back in place. Definitely feels much better with the new encoder. A little bit more tactility, less play and kind of wiggling and weirdness when you go to scroll. So already that's a good sign. And now we can put the 4 screws back in that hold down the PCB. Definitely don't over tighten these as they're just metal into plastic. Just get them snug and that's good enough. Plug the battery back in. And this part's a little bit tricky. We have to get this LED ribbon cable connected. So just bring the top shell close to the bottom shell, get your tweezers and push the cable back in. Once that's done, it's time to snap the bottom and top shell back together. Sorry, that's a little bit out of frame. You didn't get to see it, but not hard to do. And once that's done, you just got to put the 3 screws back in on the bottom, the external screws. Don't over tighten those. And then replace your footer pad, or put your new one on, or reuse the old one if it's in good enough condition, and you're good to go. Definitely a worthwhile upgrade if your scroll wheel is glitching out on your mouse. Definitely want to do this, and even if it's not, this one is an improvement, big improvement overall over the one that comes stock on the mouse. It's a little bit stiffer, but it's got a little bit more of a positive tactile feel, and it's scrolling extremely reliably. Take care, and thanks for watching.